Hello, everybody, and welcome to the stream. Just to give you guys a heads up, although this is a public live stream, at the conclusion of this live stream, this will be put on members only. So if you enjoy the live stream, go ahead and feel free to join my community, become a member of my channel, and this content will exist in perpetuity. But if you are new here, hi, how are you? My name is it's Amira, and I love to come on and give commentary about women and common issues that we face. I like to take current events, things that are going on YouTube, and TV shows, books, movies that I watch, and help to translate those concepts into issues that women face in their true lives. I also like to use my platform as an opportunity for women to find themselves through self-discovery, accountability, a sense of self-worth and purpose, all of the things. So that's what I like to use my platform for. If you are new here, do not feel free to hit the subscribe button and join the community. I would love to have you. I don't know if there's anybody in the live stream, but I like to have people come into the live stream, tell me you here, say hi, say hello, make sure you can hear me. So if you are watching the live stream, go ahead and leave a little comment, say, girl, I can hear you. Because I want to get into this conversation. Again, just a couple housekeeping items. Happy Monday. Let's start there. I ended up getting my hair braided today. I'm feeling my little braids. Girl is back with the braids after doing my little wig stint for quite some time. Hi, Honey Lamore. Hi, nice to have you. I'm glad you can hear me. That makes me very excited. If you are listening, I did say that this live will be put on members only at the live's conclusion. So if you enjoy the content and content like this, please consider joining my membership so that you can stay up to date on the advice that I give. As you know, today's conversation, if you saw the title, it's going to be about damsels in distress and the weaponization of Rescue Me. This live is primarily focused on how women who are suffering or who like to use their in distress in order to gain sympathy or in order to exist in their own state of victimization to atone for a wrong they believe that they have caused in their life. So it's about women who either use their sadness to exploit the love of others, or two, women who exist in their own state of victimhood in order to enable self-harm or to harm others. So this is what this live is about today, and is brought to you by a wonderful show that is on Amazon Prime. The show is called Women Who Kill. It is a phenomenal show. I only watched season 1, but I wanted to take this opportunity to Hi, Braider Life. How are you? I wanted to take this opportunity to talk about one of the main characters in that show. Her name is Beth Ann, and she, in my opinion, has a blend of damsel in distress syndrome as well as psychopathy. So we're going to talk about that today and how she was led to kill. So what is a damsel in distress? So when we think about a woman who is a damsel in distress, I want you guys to think about like Cinderella or a fairy tale character. Typically, women who want to become or be perceived as damsels in distress will present with some sort of depression, state of victimhood, sympathy, a tragedy that has occurred in their life, and they will use and exploit whatever event that has happened in their life as a means to kind of exist in this state of solace or in this state of sadness. And then they use that as an opportunity to exploit. It's a form of manipulation, right? So a damsel in distress, typically, even though they seem as a non-threatening person, they can be extremely cunning and extremely manipulative. And the reason why is because a damsel in distress is usually seen as a non-threatening person in your life. This person can show up in your friendships, they can show up in your family, they can show up in anywhere. But the main characteristics is they come across as somebody who you wouldn't expect to be dangerous because they present themselves as weak and as docile. So this is a particular person who, when you see them, you're like, oh, they kind of fly under the radar. They always have some sort of crisis going on in their life. They're always in a state of sadness. They always have somebody who's done something to them, right? These women are often presented as depressed. They come across as somebody who a man wants to come in and rescue, hence the name damsel in distress. These types of women absolutely attract men who are narcissistic or who can be malignant narcissists. A damsel in distress can also be a narcissist and a covert narcissist, which is somebody who has the ability to suppress their narcissism and when it's convenient in order to manipulate and take advantage of those around them. So that's what you call a covert narcissist. A covert narcissist can also be very self-deprecating. They can be somebody who, again, exists in a state of victimhood and always says, it's me, I'm in trouble, like someone hurt me, right? It's somebody who maybe lacks a little bit of difficulty taking accountability for what it is that's going on in their life. So that's what you would call a covert narcissist. These people, also damsel in distress, which is not a covert narcissist necessarily, but a damsel in distress could be a covert narcissist. So they don't have to be, you don't have to be both, but usually they can present together. So the damsel in distress almost always attracts a man who is very narcissistic, of egomaniac or malignant narcissist characteristics. And this man comes along because the damsel in distress is known to attract a man who wants to rescue them. Men intrinsically want to save a woman, right? A man likes the quickest way for a woman who's a damsel in distress to present herself as weak and docile, because a man who is an ego driven sees her as less than him. He sees her as easy to control, easy to manipulate emotionally, easy to take advantage of. She'll stay in her place and she'll do what I say, right? So he sees her as that. And men like to save weak women, right? Because a man feels like a man when he's protecting and providing for a woman. Therefore, they usually target women who present with some sort of damsel in distress syndrome, depression, and they fall in love with that whole hero syndrome, right? Like he wants to save her from whatever crisis she is going through. And a damsel in distress, especially ones who can present with psychopathy, will exploit that behavior out of the man. So she knows that if she can create scenarios in which she is seen as sad or in need of rescue, she can control and manipulate this man into doing what she wants. So that's typically how you would see a damsel in distress behave. When they present with signs of psychosis as the main character in this movie, Women Who Kill, we are going to explore Beth Ann, who, in my opinion, is a fascinating character. She gives up her dreams of being a concert pianist. So she had this dream of having this life as a pianist. And then she meets this man who comes in. He's charming. He's romantic. He's supposed to save her from her mundane lifestyle, whisk her away into this very affluent lifestyle that she is supposed to live. And she, in turn, gives up all of her dreams to invest herself in being the perfect woman for this guy. So she takes on, all of these different characteristics that he would love: a stay-at-home mom, a woman who cooks and cleans, somebody who knows how to stay in her place, somebody who just knows how to fit this box or this mold for what this man wants her to be. She presents herself that way. She then begins to self-deprecate herself because she is led to believe that she is responsible for the death of her daughter. And that is what sort of perpetuates her sort of damsel in distress mentality. She goes into a state of depression, but she presents herself as being very happy, very joyful, very loving to her friends around her, sort of a protective. And because of all of these characteristics of her being like this perfect Stepford wife, nonetheless, presenting, a lot of people feel that she, is strong. Some people feel she's strong, and some people begin to, hi everybody, hi FJ. Some people begin to excuse her behavior, her psychotic behavior, because they believe that she is existing in a state of victimhood and that she is basically a tragedy of her own life because her daughter dies and she believes it's her fault. Fast forward in the story, we learn that it is not her fault that her daughter died. Her daughter actually died because her husband was having an affair with another woman, and that woman ended up leaving the gate to their house open, and their daughter ends up running into the street and losing her life. This woman, in return, becomes absolutely obsessed with her husband's mistress. She decides that I have to figure out, she finds out her husband is cheating and she becomes obsessed with the mistress. This is not the mistress who killed the daughter. This is a completely different mistress. She talks to her friend about it and she's like, hey, I'm going to become friends with my husband's mistress. And she tells one of her friends that her friend is like, whoa, why would you do that? Why would you become friends with your husband's mistress who is pregnant with his baby? Yes. And the woman basically says that she believes deep down in her psychotic mind that she could convince this woman who has fallen on hard times financially that she would be a better fit to be a mother to this woman's unborn child. Like, I'm a better fit to be a mother. I lost my child. You are pregnant with my husband's baby. So I need that baby. Like, that baby needs to be mine. So she goes on this whole stream of consciousness of trying to befriend the other woman, being nice to her. She's trying to help the woman pay for things. She starts selling things in her house to give this woman money. She puts on this whole affront that she wants to be this woman's friend. And this woman has absolutely no idea that she is the wife to her husband, to her boyfriend, right? So She basically takes on this entirely different persona and pretends, changes her name, and tries to win this woman's good graces, and uses and exploits her "I lost my child" story and "I'm so sad" story as a means to convince the people who was aware that she's doing this, i.e., her best friend, that this is a normal thing for her to do. Like, this is normal. And the friend sort of excuses that behavior because she knows her friend is suffering. So she excuses the behavior. And she's like, "Oh, I thought it was kind of funny at first." But then she comes to the realization that this woman is actually mentally ill. This woman is trying to take this woman's child from her and take on this whole different identity. And the husband, who is the narcissistic husband, decides that, okay, well, I am going to take advantage of this situation because I think my wife is dumb. I think my wife is dumb, and I'm going to exploit the fact that I think that she's just a dumb Stepford wife type, and that I could control and manipulate her. And he basically punishes the wife over and over again by reminding her that it's her fault that their child is dead, when all along he knows that it's his fault. He knows that it is him who betrayed the trust of his wife. It's him who caused her all that pain. It's him who brought that trauma into their life. But he leads her to believe that the responsibility belongs to her and her own negligence. And the woman, being so weak-willed and weak-minded, buys into this story and this fantasy. Like, she buys into it. Like, she begins to question her own reality, and he uses that to gaslight her. And she starts to think back, like, did I leave the gate open? It is my fault that my daughter is dead. And she goes into this sort of psychotic state. Ultimately, the woman ends up developing an entire plot and plan to kill the husband with a neighbor who's also experiencing some issues in her relationship, in her marriage. And she ends up turning on the husband and getting him killed. And one of the things that I thought was interesting about it is because nobody suspected that this woman could be capable of murder. They never expected that this woman had it in her. She always presented herself as weak and just go along and get along, that she was sort of the quiet, reserved friend who just fell in line for her perfect marriage, right? Her perfect family. But really, she was struggling with some deep unresolved issues inside, struggling with the fact that she had abandoned a dream she had of her own. She had abandoned her promising career as a concert pianist for what she thought was going to be her fairy tale romance, like most damsels in distress do. They abandon reason and ration because they believe in the fairy tale story that a man sells them. And this story is often sold by a man who wants to exploit the low self-esteem and low self-worth of the damsel in distress. And the damsel in distress, Beth Ann, hero, thought her husband was a hero. He thought that, she had this perfect life. Like, he's given me everything I ever wanted: a home, kids, children. This is the perfect life that I'm getting. And she falls into that fantasy, and it allows her to become blind to what was really going on in front of her, which was the fact that he had been cheating on her for years with multiple women in their home. And she chose to ignore it. She just chose to ignore it because she wanted to live out this fantasy that you see in fairy tale novels of, I'm being saved, and like, I'm this victim, and I can wallow in this sadness and this sorrow and use that as a way to get what I want when I want it. Now, how does she do that? Well, she basically her husband would give her gifts in order to like make her feel better. He bought her a house in order to make her feel better about the child being killed, even though it was his fault all along. He made it seem like, I'm doing this for you. Like, I'm doing you a favor because of your suffering. But really, all along, it was him that caused the pain. And he allowed her to believe that she was responsible for the trauma in her life and not that it was him. And one of the things I want to say about women who find themselves in situations where they are going after men who want to plot on their sadness and their weakness is that twofold. One, as a woman, you have to understand that men can smell your low self-esteem. They can smell your low self-worth, and they can smell that you are struggling emotionally. And when you present yourself that way as a sad person who needs to be rescued, you are attracting a man who wants to exploit that need to save you, and who's probably going to continue to emotionally harm, manipulate, and control you in some way, form, or fashion. Now, that can be through financial manipulation, like putting you in this beautiful life you think you're living. It can be through emotional manipulation by making you feel in constant need to compete with other women, which her husband was excellent at. They go to a dinner party, and her husband starts dancing with another woman right in front of her, you know, holding the other woman. And she's made to believe that she's the crazy one for being like, why are you doing this in front of my face? And he's like, oh, you're overreacting. You're doing too much. But she's so caught up in this fairy tale life that she wants for herself that she ignores all the breadcrumbs that are leading her up to this path that she's ultimately going to find. Um, and so one of the things I, want to say that when someone is struggling like that, as a woman, you have to be aware of the type of man that you are attracting. And you have to look out for the warning signs, because if you have not properly healed from whatever trauma you're dealing with, you can get yourself into a situation with a man who's manipulating you, and you might be so far gone by the time you realize it. And then on the contrary, as a man, when you go after women who present with that damsel in distress syndrome, they present with levels of like sadness, and they need to be rescued, and they've been hurt by everybody in their life, and they have all of these stories of sympathy and trauma and sadness. As a man, you have to be able to recognize these kind of women and say, what is she capable of at the end of the day? Like, is this the kind of woman who could be led to kill? Because a lot of things that people underestimate, and there's a whole series on WeTV about it. What is it called? Like For My Man, or Women Who Kill, or whatever. But they did a whole show on it. Like women who just snap. It's called Snapped. Women who just snap. And ultimately, it could be women who are made to believe that they're going to have this fairy tale lifestyle with this fairy tale man. And then ultimately, they snap when the dream that they had in their mind doesn't live up to what is actually being presented in front of them. And then these women can go ahead and recruit people to buy into their psychosis, and can set you up to be killed. They can set other people up to be killed, because these women can present to be like, I'm not going to let you take everything from me, which is what this woman felt about this mistress initially. Like, you're taking my husband, you're taking my baby, you're taking my fairy tale life, because the husband ends up telling the mistress he wants to marry her. And the mistress had no idea that that was the wife. So she tells the wife, he said he wants to marry me in 6 months. And the wife pretends to have cancer. We didn't even talk about that. So the wife wants to one up the pregnant girlfriend by coming up with an even more crazy story about her having terminal cancer. Yes, she said that she's terminally ill and that she has cancer. And the husband buys into it enough to so to say, well, this is going to be my way out, and tells the mistress, well, in 6 months, I'm going to run off and marry you because my wife has cancer. I mean, she's not even lukewarm in her grave. But that's what a damsel in distress would do. They will one up the crisis, right? Like, oh, she has a crisis, I need to create even more of a crisis to one up that crisis. But men have to be aware that when you go after women who know how to hide their internal turmoil, and they do a very good job of putting up a front of that, or women who exploit their turmoil and they're always sad and they're constantly crying and they're drifting off into some abyss of sadness, you have to be I'm talking about Women Who Kill. It's a show on Amazon Prime. And I'm profiling one of the main characters, Beth Ann, who ends up killing her husband because he cheats on her, has a baby with another woman. Beth Ann, thank you so much, Demi. Beth Ann decides to befriend the other woman in an attempt to steal this other woman's baby by convincing the other woman she's an unfit mother. So that was Beth Ann's ploy. Like, I'm gonna convince you you're an unfit mother and that you're poor and that you can't take care of your kid appropriately so that you can give me your baby, because Beth Ann is having a psychotic break, believing that that woman has her child because her husband goes ahead and impregnates this other woman. And so somewhere in the back of her psychotic mind, she thinks that baby is somehow hers. So that's where profiling Beth Ann, the main character, and how she presents herself as somebody you would never expect would be capable of murder. She's an alleged Stepford wife. She doesn't say much. She stays in her place. She has dinner on the table every single night. She wants to be the perfect wife, the perfect mother, and give this guy the perfect fairy tale that he's looking for. And her husband is this narcissistic man. So because Beth Ann wants to, presents herself that way, she disarms almost everybody around her. Nobody thought that she was capable of murder, not even the mistress. She disarmed her by being friendly, by being helpful, giving her, selling items in her home to give the woman money, like being friendly and kind to her. All the while, as you're watching this as a viewer, you're like, that's not a normal response to a woman finding out that her husband is cheating on her with another woman. That's not a normal response. The normal response to finding out you're being cheated on is rage, right? Like, rage is normal. Like, I'm upset. I'm going to flip out. I'm going to, curse her out, curse you out. a normal response isn't, I'm going to give you a gift, right? But that was Beth Ann's response, to befriend this woman, legitimately befriend her, and tell her friend, like, hey, look, I'm becoming friends with the mistress because she's a nice person. She's a nice person, and I want to give her a chance. I want to be friends with her. And the friend, not believing that Beth Ann is like not capable of this kind of stuff, thought it was funny. She thought that it was completely normal to befriend. Not that she thought it was normal. She thought it was a game. Like, oh, this is a fun game you can play. Like, you could befriend the mistress, learn more about her, figure out what your husband likes about her, and then ultimately you'll back away. Well, the friend ultimately realizes that Beth Ann is batshit crazy. Beth Ann is absolutely batshit crazy, and that she has absolutely no intentions of stopping being friends with this woman. In fact, she intends on taking this woman's baby from her. And when she realizes that she can't do that because the husband does another ultimate betrayal, which is ask this mistress to marry him, Beth Ann decides to change her plan. Instead of stealing this woman's baby, I'm now going to kill this man. I don't know if I can say, well, it's going on members only. It doesn't matter. I'm going to KILL this man. She comes up with this elaborate scheme to take this man out. And that is what happens when, her husband, who is a narcissist, who is exploiting her and cheating on her left and right, he never expected it. But she comes up with this elaborate plan to get him murdered. And honestly, it was me just kind of thinking and coming to see, like, what is going on in the mind of Beth Ann? Like, how did she present herself as so non-threatening, gave up all of her dreams, right? Put her aspirations on the back burner because she believed in this fairy tale love she had found. But deep down inside, there was this deep resentment, this deep pain, this deep sadness, this deep wallowing of sympathy, because she believed that it was her fault that her child had died. She had taken on that responsibility, so much so that she found that her husband was cheating, and her normal response to that was, this is my fault. It's my fault because I made this big mistake in our relationship. I couldn't save the life of our child. And that set her into this state of victimhood, this state of self-pity, of self-wallowing. And then she goes on this escapade to meet the other woman and try to take this woman's baby by being friendly with her and convincing her out of her being a mom. And the friend ends up confronting Beth Ann, like, why are you so like, this is not normal behavior. Like, this baby is not yours. That's her baby. Like, that's not your baby. And Beth Ann almost says, like, that is my baby. Like, yes, that baby came to her because of my husband. That is my baby. Like, she took my baby and she wants to avenge that. And then when ultimately she realizes she can't, she ends up killing her husband. And the story ends up with her she does get possession of the child, and runs off with the child to New York City. I don't know where the mother is, who the mistress. I don't know what happened to the mistress, but ultimately Beth Ann does get the child. She sells the house, and then she runs off to New York City to raise this child that's not hers, but was the result of cheating in her relationship. So I wanted to profile that from two angles. One, Beth Ann and the damsel in distress, and how men should worry and be concerned about women who are constantly in a state of crisis, because you don't know what these women are capable of. A lot of men think that a woman who is sad and who is depressed can be emotionally manipulated and controlled by him, and that he's always in control of the situation. But men don't necessarily account for variable change. They don't account for the fact that this woman might actually be driven to harm you. She might actually be driven to kill you, because of this ultimate betrayal you did to her, and because she has suffered so much at your hands. You don't know what this woman is capable of. And a lot of men miss that when they're dealing with damsels in distress. They miss that. They miss the writing on the wall that you might also be in danger, because damsels in distress are very manipulative, and they fly under the radar, and they convince those people around them that their behavior is normal and that it's rational. And people buy into that behavior. So I wanted to profile it from that angle, and then also from the other angle of women who are easily gaslit and who don't know how to stand up for themselves when they see something wrong happening, that they believe that their only alternative is to harm those who they believe harm them, instead of taking accountability and instead of accepting the fact that, what role did I play in ignoring the warning signs that were in front of me? Because a lot of women do that. They know that something doesn't seem right, or they get that gut feeling in their stomach, and they pass it off, and they ignore it, and they ignore it, and they ignore it, and they ignore it. And then ultimately something like this happens, where you find out your husband has had a baby outside of your relationship. But ultimately, like, where were the signs? You know, the signs were there. You chose to ignore them. And so you as a woman have to take accountability for that and take yourself out of that level of victimhood. Like, oh, he wronged me. He wronged me. This is all him. Instead, ask yourself, like, what role did I play? What signs did I miss? Where did I go wrong? Where did I not hold myself accountable for the mistakes that were made? And then how can I do a better job of not exploiting my pain, right? Because you can't always be a damsel in distress. At some point, someone's going to say to you, which Beth Ann's friend said, you have to grow up. You're a sick individual. You cannot use your suffering to harm other people and to exploit the pain of others. You cannot do that. Grow up. You have to grow up. The damsel in distress has to grow up. And if you don't recognize it, you can push off the deep end and be driven to harm others. Absolutely driven to harm others, or worse, driven to harm the man who harmed you, because you didn't deal with your unresolved issues. And so as a woman, when you walk into a relationship, I always encourage them to do self-inventory. Like, how can I do self-inventory? And ask myself, like, am I physically and emotionally prepared to enter into a relationship with another human being? Because if you don't deal with that, or whatever it is that you're dealing with, you're going to bring that pain into the relationship. And suppression, when you suppress that pain, and it's in the back of your mind and you're trying to control, you know, like that's how people develop OCD. Like you develop obsessive compulsive disorder, where like things have to be done in a certain way, or you have to leave the house at a certain time every day, or you have to, you know, flick the light a certain amount of times before you leave, or you have to use the bathroom a certain amount of times before you venture out into the world. Like people who develop sort of these obsessive compulsive behaviors in order to control the environment around them are almost always at the most risk of damsel in distress syndrome, and could be driven into psychosis when things don't go their way, or when a part of their picture doesn't necessarily line up to the way that they want it to look, right? They can't handle imperfection, essentially. And so that self-deprecation comes in when something doesn't go their way, because they can't handle it. They can't handle things not working out. And so I just wanted to kind of talk about that topic. If you haven't seen the show, it's phenomenal. It's on Amazon Prime. It's called Why Women Kill. It's very, very good. I encourage you to take a look at it. I'm on season 2. I'm going to watch. I binge watched the first season in one day. It's that good. And it really just gives you a lot into the insight of women and why they could be driven to harm their partners, why women put up with certain things like cheating, and just how you can look out for a man who might be trying to manipulate or control you. And also on the other side of a man, and how you can look out for a woman who might be using her pain against you, right? And might ultimately be driven to hurt you as a result of that pain you brought into her life. And you could totally miss the signs because you're so focused on rescuing her. You don't realize you need to rescue yourself. So great show. I encourage you to check it out. I'm going to go ahead and end this live. I don't be on for a long time. I like to keep it short and brief. I hope you guys enjoyed this topic. Definitely check out the show. And I will talk to you guys next time. Thanks for hanging out. Bye. Oh, wait, how do you set boundaries with people who have damsel in distress? Oh, that's a great question, Denny's World. So one of the things I would encourage you to do is tell them to take responsibility for their pain. The first thing I always tell clients whenever I talk to them is, when you are looking for a partner, you have to make a list of hard-hitting questions. And hard-hitting questions are questions that you have to ask to figure out where this person is emotionally and mentally. Some of the questions I like to ask is like, tell me a little bit about the way that you grew up. When is the last time someone, hurt you, and how did you recover from that pain? And I know these seem like very deep questions to be asking somebody you're dating, but honestly, there's so much information in between the layers of those questions. When you ask somebody, when is the last time somebody hurt you and how did you recover from that pain? You are asking them, are you over that trauma, and do you know how to get through trauma? And if that person answers that question by saying, oh, such and such and such did XYZ to me, and I still ain't talking to her, or I still ain't talking to him, then you know that this person is capable of holding grudges, and this person might have unresolved issues that they need to unpack. And I think it's important to get to the root of that. Like, why is it that you don't forgive people? Why is it that you hold grudges? Why is it that you know that you are suffering but refuse to get help for that pain? This could be particularly true for people who suffer with grief. Maybe someone lost a loved one, right? And they're like, they somehow are holding guilt around the loss of that family member. I'm a big proponent of grief counseling as well. Like, how did you deal with that? Because if you don't know how to let go of pain and it's in the back of your mind, you are going to take that pain out on somebody else. You're going to take it out on somebody else. And so I think the first boundary is asking the right questions and then figuring out based on the answer to those questions, if this is somebody you can continue to deal with and if you can handle that level of trauma, because everybody is not capable of dealing with somebody who is suffering from the damsel in distress syndrome. Everybody's not capable. You're not capable because it requires a lot out of you emotionally. A lot out of you emotionally to constantly compensate for their sadness. It's like this person is constantly taking withdrawals from your life. And then as a man, that becomes intoxicating, especially for a man who builds his entire ego on affection from a woman, right? He constantly needs to be reassured. He constantly to be reminded of how perfect he is, how wonderful he is, how attractive he is, right? A damsel in distress, the perfect person for that. A damsel in distress is a very low maintenance female. And the reason why I say she's a low maintenance female, because you don't need to give a damsel in distress money. You don't need to give a damsel in distress security, like a physical home. You only need to give a damsel in distress words, because a damsel in distress only needs to be fulfilled emotionally by words. They are the most easy to get them to fall in love with you, because they're like, they just look at you with the doting eyes. Oh my God, he's my perfect hero. He's telling me everything I wanted to hear. He's telling me the fairy tale I'm going to live, the life we're going to have, the dreams we are building together. They are so open because they are just looking for somebody to make them feel seen, heard, and understood, right? They have that state of victimhood. So somebody can make them feel like they're going to protect them from their pity, right? Like, you're going to protect me from my pity. You see something in me everybody else didn't. Well, you become the hero to the damsel in distress. You have given her the ultimate hero story, right? The perfect vision of that perfect fairy tale. He's going to rescue me from my sadness. This is my dream come true. He's going to give me everything I ever wanted. That's what a damsel in distress wants. And a man who is a narcissist, whoa, that's easy. That's like the little Staples button. That was easy. It's very easy. It's very easy to give you that. All you want is words, but I got words for days. I got bars for days. You don't require anything more of me, just words. And I can go out and cheat on you and then just come back home and say, oh, but I love you so much. You're so much better than everyone else. You're so perfect. And a damsel in distress is eating it all up. But the way you break a damsel in distress is when you commit an ultimate betrayal. When you commit an ultimate betrayal, whatever that may be in the damsel in distress's mind, you better be damn careful, because a damsel in distress, deep down underneath all of that, is a lot of anger. It's a lot of anger. And some don't know how to manage it like others. Some of them will snap. And the next thing you know, you're going to meet that evil in them, that evil that could be driven to harm you, like Beth Ann. You know, be very careful pursuing the damsel in distress. It's a delicate balance. If you can't live up to the task, you better be sure to evaluate. And then also just not being responsible for other people's feelings. See, damsels in distress can also present themselves in friendship. And I'm still going, because now you done took me down another tangent, Demi's world. But damsels in distress can always also present themselves in friendships. And that is almost one of the most draining friendships as a woman that you can get yourself into with another woman, because a damsel in distress will pull from you emotionally over and over and over again. She only comes to you when she's in crisis. She only comes to you when she has a problem. She pulls out, she wants advice, sympathy, but she will take no actions to change her circumstances. Zero action to change her circumstances. That's how damsels in distress manipulate their friends. Oh, they'll ask you for advice all day. They'll exploit your attention all day. Oh, I need your help. Give me some advice. Oh my God, I need your advice. What should I do? And you beating it to them. Do this. And they will absolutely take zero shreds of advice, because a damsel in distress does not want your goddamn opinion. They want your sympathy. That's it. That's all they want, your sympathy and your pity. They don't want your opinion. And if they do want your opinion, it's only if you're telling them, oh, you could do good, you could do better. Everybody has damsels in distress in their life, me included, but I know who they are. And so I can say, listen, this is the damsel in distress calling. I have my boundaries. I'm gonna give you X amount of minutes of my time, and then I got to go. Everybody has damsels in distress in their life. Absolutely everybody. But they're the ones who they pull on you, pull on you, pull on you, and they are so manipulative. Like damsels in distress are so super manipulative. They can literally have everybody around them thinking that they are actually they are actually the one being harmed, when really they're doing the harm. Like they're doing it to themselves. They're so self-deprecating that like, you know, you're in a bad situation, you're staying in a bad situation, but you want me to be held accountable for you not being happy. Like they put they put the responsibility of their happiness in your hands. That's another characteristic of damsel in distress. They create this situation where they need to be protected by all costs and by any means, as if they themselves did not ignore a series of warnings and steps and behaviors that were presented in front of them before they got themselves into this ultimate catastrophe. Catastrophes don't just happen overnight. There's a series of behaviors that happen that you could see the warning signs. The catastrophe is probably coming. And then when it comes, it's like, oh my God, I'm blindsided. No, you weren't blindsided. You saw the catastrophe coming. You decided not to divert. You like, I'm going to stay on this ride. And then when you did stay on that ride, now you want everybody to feel sympathy for you for not getting off the ride. Right? Like Beth Ann. Beth Ann wanted sympathy from her friend for her psychotic behavior of trying to befriend the other woman and be nice to the other woman and create this ultimate plan to take this woman's baby from her. Her friend enabled that behavior, encouraged her even, because she truly believed that Beth was somehow suffering from this ultimate trauma, right? This bad marriage, this bad guy who hurt her, this losing the loss of her child, this pain that she was feeling. But ultimately, you know, the friend snapped out of it and was like, no, you're a sick individual. You are mentally unwell, because that's not normal or rational behavior. And as your friend, I can no longer perpetuate this damsel in distress behavior from you. I'm going to look you in the face and say, no, you at this point, you're not the victim anymore. You're crazy. That's pretty much what it is. Hey, Vicky Sweets, how are you? So that's what I personally believe about damsels in distress and how they show up in friendships, and they manipulate their friends. They're very good at manipulating friends. The damsel in distress is also completely obsessed with being infantilized. If you guys don't, you know, if you don't know what that means, infantilized is this state of like innocence, of childhood, of woe is me. They always make themselves appear small because it's very easy to want to rescue somebody who seems defenseless. So that's how damsels in distress exploit their friendships. They present themselves as weak, as sad, as non-threatening, and they get you to buy into the narrative that they are selling, no matter how delusional or crazy it may be. Because you, as a friend, a rational friend, might really believe that this person is struggling. You're like, this person's a good person. They're there for everybody. She's so sad. I have to be the one to save her, to like buy into this narrative. But really, they're exploiting your friendship. They're exploiting your friendship. Damsels in distress can be very manipulative people, and they can be very good at exploiting their friends' emotional intelligence. You know, they're very good at figuring out what makes people tick. And so they can exploit that for their own advantage. And they can use you as a friend and drive you so that you look up at your life and your life is ruined because you was trying to save this damsel in distress. But really, you just gotta look out, you know, you can't save the damsel in distress. It's dangerous behavior. You can't save a damsel in distress because her ass always want to be distressed and damsel. You got to get out. Possible some may not know they are doing this. Know that they're damsel in distress. I think that people who are a damsel in distress get grave satisfaction from people pouring positivity into them. And that's why I said earlier in the conversation that damsels in distress could be covert narcissists, because they like to be sad. They like to present as sad and as distressed so that people can tell them that they're okay and that they're well and that they're loved and that they're better and that they're perfect and that they're accomplished. They thrive off that emotion. They need that constant reassurance. They need it. They are driven by it. They wouldn't be able to get up without it, right? But the only way to get people to constantly praise you and pour into you, unless you're a certified bad B, like a bad B, and people who are bad Bs or like those IG baddies who are like whatever, those people naturally get a lot of compliments, right? Oh, you're so beautiful, you're so blah blah blah. So it's easy for them to kind of fill themselves up on that ego-driven behavior. But a damsel in distress wouldn't present that way. A damsel in distress is usually somebody who might be more of a plain Jane, but also secretly is obsessed with their own self-gratification. I'm talking about damsels in distress and friendships. This is driven to that. They're obsessed with their own self-gratification. And so that presentation of weakness is a front. It's a front so that people can feel bad for them and people could tell them, no, you're great at this, or you're beautiful and you're perfect and you're strong and you're smart and you're this and you're that and blah blah blah. They need that. They need that to survive. So pretending to be insecure, and I call it pretending to be insecure, is simply a strategy. It's simply a strategy to disarm the people they want to exploit. At the end of the day, they need professional help. You were right all along. Oh goodness, Dayon. Let's not be messy. Let's not be messy. I like to go ahead and just give good advice to women who need good advice. Let's not be messy in the chat. But I do say that women who do that, it's just to fulfill their own ego and to make themselves feel absolved of whatever crisis it is that they're facing. And sometimes you could stage a crisis. You know, in this case, Beth Ann did not stage a crisis. She really did lose her child and she was really hurt by it, but she allowed her husband to gaslight her despite knowing that it was not her fault. She let herself be gaslit into believing that it was her fault so that she could so that he continued to control her and that she could wallow in her own self-pity. You know, she could wallow in her own self-pity. I had a friend that did this. It is exhausting. It's absolutely exhausting. It's Miss Tutu. It is absolutely exhausting because it takes a long time for you to because especially for women who are good friends. Like if you're a person who's a good friend, you might derive gratification yourself out of helping a friend, right? Because we all want to be seen as loyal. But damsels in distress can exploit your loyalty. Like they can exploit loyalty from people. And some people operate like, I don't know, earlier in my videos, I used to talk about like these 4 guiding principles by which most people operate their life. So we have like, you know, some people's main driving principle is loyalty. Some people, it could be empathy. Some people, it could be anger. Some people, it could be pity. There are these driving forces that make that people run their life by. Like everyone has it. Everyone has a principle that's at the core of their being. A principle is there. Like, what's my core principle? And for a lot of women, that core principle could be loyalty. And when a damsel in distress finds somebody whose core principle is loyalty, they will absolutely exploit and manipulate and monopolize that out of you. So for me, I recognize the signs of it. Like I am a very loyal person. That's how I see myself. I see myself as my core principle is loyalty. Like I'm loyal to the day that I die. I respect people who are loyal. I'm all about that loyalty life. But I created a shirt that said, never be so loyal you betray yourself. And really the reason why I created that shirt was because loyalty can make you betray yourself. You could be so loyal to saving people that you can betray what's right for you and your own family and your own circumstances. And that is how damsels in distress exploit their friends, because they prey on that loyalty. They find people who guiding principle is loyalty. Like at the end of the day, if this person ain't nothing else, they're going to be loyal to me. And they exploit that. And the way that they exploit it is they prey on you not turning on them. They prey on that. Like I know that you driven by loyalty, you will never turn on me. And so no matter what I do, no matter how much ridiculous behavior I exhibit, no matter what my circumstances are, at the end of the day, you're going to protect me at all costs because your guiding principle is loyalty. But people who are loyal got to be very careful not to betray themselves, especially with people who present as damsels in distress, especially with that. I've had it happen to me in my own life. If I was going to keep this on members only, I would tell you guys the story, but I'm live now, but if this was a private members only, I would tell you guys the story. But it's happened to me in my own life. Like you just so loyal to people and you let them exploit you. You let them take you away from your family, from your time, from the things that you should be focused on in your life, from growing your own well-being. And they exploit that loyalty so much so that you get yourself into something you don't even need to be in because you are so loyal. You are so loyal. So maybe for my next members only live, I'll talk about, talk about something like something like that, like on a more personal level, like how people exploit your loyalty. But you got to be careful with that. You got to be careful with that because you might go ahead and martyr yourself for them out of that loyalty. You might martyr yourself, and then you might look back at your life like, why did I give up all of that? Why did I sacrifice myself for this person who wouldn't even do that shit for me? Why would I sacrifice myself for somebody? Because I'm empathizing with their pain, right? So those two are my main guiding principles: loyalty and empathy. Those are my main guiding principles. Like if you ask anybody in my life, what do you think about Amira? They would absolutely tell you she is undoubtedly loyal and she is so empathetic. So the friends that I have in my life, I got like a few best friends, and we've literally been best friends since I was 10 years old. Like, I don't make new friends. I am extremely ruthlessly loyal to the people I have. I have a few new friends, but like not like that. You know what I mean? Like you got your friends. Like I think I talked about this in one of my other lives. I've only made like 2 friends in my adult life outside of my core friend circle, because I'm fiercely loyal and I take friendships very seriously. I'm the person that when it comes to my friends, it's big energy about my friends because that's my guiding principle, right? And I also would have empathy. I empathize with others a lot, and therefore I take on the traumas of other people. I take on their pain as if it were my own. I don't want to get too much into the story. I'll put it in my members only. So if you are on my channel and you want to know more about like how people and friendships exploit your loyalty, please consider joining my membership. I'm actually going to make my next live about that. Members only live will be private just to members, because when I'm talking about real personal stuff, I like to keep it super private. But yeah, I will tell you that story. Like, you can give up so much on some loyalty shit, like so much of your time, energy, and efforts, and you will never get that energy back in return. You got to be very careful, and you can literally ruin your life trying to be loyal to somebody who wouldn't even do anything for you on that level or at that capacity, But they present themselves as such a damsel in distress, as such a victim, as somebody who needs to be rescued and saved, that you feel like you really are doing a good deed because you a down female, right? You're a good friend. People exploit friendships all the time. You got to be hella careful about who you give your loyalty to, because everybody don't deserve your loyalty, and who you give your empathy to, because everybody don't deserve your empathy. Everybody doesn't deserve your empathy. So you got to be careful with that. So that's a story for another time, because I don't want to be on here too long. And if I go down that rabbit hole, it's a members only conversation. But yes, I just wanted to talk about that, and like being protective of yourself, evaluating your friendships, and just being very clear on who you're giving that level of trust to, because everybody don't deserve your trust. What did Vicky say? My friend is like that. She was as me. Wait, hold on. My friend is like that, me, and because she knows I'm loyal, it was depleted funds I saved to help her. But let's just say I see her now. Oh, absolutely. You depleted some fund. Absolutely. Absolutely. That damsel in distress stuff will have you, when I tell you, it will have you co-signing stuff. It will have you giving people hundreds and hundreds of dollars. It will have you getting into fights for people. It will have you doing the most for people who put themselves in a situation. Like, you put yourself in this bullshit, and now you want me to ruin my life behind your bullshit. Absolutely. You put yourself in some bullshit, and now you want me to ruin my life behind your bullshit. And when the smoke hits the fan, you ain't gonna be nowhere to be found when it's time to absolve me of the bullshit I'm in, because everything done in the dark comes to the light in some form of fashion. And when the fucking lights flick on, where are you? Where are you? Are you going to be somewhere to be found? Right? So you got to be careful with that damsel in distress. You got to make sure the person you trying to save would be the same person that'll save you. So figure out what their guiding principle is. Figure out what their guiding principle is. Right? Everybody guiding principle ain't loyalty. Some people's guiding principle is pity. Some people's guiding principle is anger. Like, are you operating from anger, from pity, from loyalty? Which one is it? Child, I gave my friend a car that I no longer needed. She let a man destroy it. Yup. Oh, yeah. That's what loyalty would do. Loyalty will have you let somebody come live with you rent free. It'll have you, oh, you know what I'm saying? I'm like super loyal. I gotta help my friend out. And it'll have you looking back at your life like, wait a second, I done did all of this for you. Like, and what do I have to show for it? You know what I mean? Giving people money that they never pay you back. Loyalty will have you doing some crazy things. And these people could be your own family members. Could be your own family members. Loyalty will have you doing some crazy things. And then you look back and you like, for what though? For what though? Because at the end of the day, unless you get in that same energy in return, unless this person would give their last in order to save or protect you, don't ever give your last bit of energy, your last bit of money, your last bit of comfort, your last bit of peace. Because let's talk about that. Let's talk about peace and how valuable peace is. Peace is hella valuable. Peace is more valuable to me. Peace is equivalent to time. You know what I mean? Like there's only two things that's most valuable in this world to me, and that's peace and time. Time because you can't never get it back, and peace because once somebody disrupt your peace, it's very hard to get it to return. You know, those are the two things when I talk about values. So I have my clients do these like inventories where I basically ask them what their guiding principles are. We do these like, I call them mind maps. So we do them together. And I like, what are your guiding principles? And I do them on myself often because sometimes your principles can change. So I realized that what I value most in my life is my time and my peace. Because those are two things you can't put value on. Time, you'll never get it back. Once it's gone, you spend your time on something, your energy on something is gone, never to be returned. The moment that's most precious is the moment you're in right now. That's it. The next moment is not promised because you could drop dead at any moment, you know? And what happened in the past, you can't go back and fix it. You only got the moment you in. So time is very valuable. And then peace. Peace is so valuable because when somebody disrupts your peace, it's no getting it back. It's no getting it back when somebody disrupts your peace. So you got to be cognizant of that, you know? And then you got to ask yourself, so those are the things I value, time and peace. And then what's my guiding principles, loyalty and empathy. But then it's very valuable. Then I ask myself, like, what is my reactive emotions? And this is going on members only after this. So if you like this conversation and you want to have it for your archives to listen to again, please join my members because it's going on members only at the conclusion of this live. But one of the things I would say that is my reactive emotions. So my reactive emotions are the emotions that like when something bad happens, how will you react? Like I call those reactive emotions. And me, it is ultimately revenge. And so I have to be very careful. And this is why I don't have a lot of friends. And this is why I don't call everybody a friend. Because I know that my reactive emotions, like when someone hurts me really bad, or if I feel like somebody did something to me that's unforgivable, there is no limit that I will go to in order to seek revenge. There's no limit. And I know that about myself. So I'm very careful with who I give my time to, who I give my empathy to, and who I give my friendship to. Because it's like it doesn't really end well. Like if once it's over, it's over. But if you betray me, then you will pay. You know what I mean? There's no limits to where I will go. And so I'm careful about what I invest my effort and time into because everybody ain't the same. You know what I mean? And I know my reactive emotions out of a lot of self-inventory and self-work. So I try to put myself in situations where I don't ever be forced to go to that point because it's not necessary and it's not okay. So true. That's why you can't help everyone. No, you can't, Dion. You cannot help everybody. You cannot help everybody. You got to be careful and selective about who you give your loyalty to and your time to. And you better be damn sure that if you get it, you're going to get it back 10 times. If I gave it to you that hard, I better get it back that hard for sure. Being friends with a damsel made me check myself on being a damsel. What does that mean? Demi's world. Being friends with the damsel made me check myself on being like you ask yourself, all right, am I a damsel in distress? Because that's what I keep attracting. No, usually damsels in distress don't attract other damsels in distress. Not generally that I've seen. I think damsels in distress tend to attract people who are very loyal, people who are fighters, very loyal, and unwavering loyalty. Usually damsels in distress are very good at attracting people who are unwaveringly loyal. What do you mean by that? I'm curious. I'm not sure, Mr. What do I mean by what? You got to be more specific because you know me, I be talking and going down rabbit holes. But yeah, what I do see is that people who are they attract very loyal people, damsels in distress. People who are very or they attract very loyal people, or in women. I'm talking about friendship here. So damsels in distress attract very loyal people in friendship, and they can attract very narcissistic partners, because some damsels in distress could be covert narcissists, and if they are, they're going to attract a overt narcissist as a partner. I have a big heart. I said boundaries around them. Yeah. Oh, Mr said, as far as how far will you go, if you don't mind me asking? I don't know, Mr. I never been pushed that far, but maybe for a members only live, I can give you guys a really nice story about revenge. I'm very crafty. I'm very crafty, and I realize that about myself. My husband always calls me, when people, like, he calls me his he's like, oh, you're like a pit bull in the skirt, or like a tiger. All my friends know that. I would never harm anybody physically. At least I never thought to do that. I don't have that in me, I don't think. You never know, though. But there's other ways to skin a cat. I'll just say that. And it's something that my husband always say, like, if somebody mess you over, like, you'll never let it go. You'll just never let it go. You must do something about it. That's my toxic trait. Toxic trait is that. But I'm working on it. I just try to remove myself from situations instead, because that's a healthier option. Yeah, you should do that in your members only. Yes, I will. In my members only, I will definitely be giving more intimate stories about my own personal life, and how I've overcome some things, how I've gotten through some things, how I've gotten some get back on people, and how to just be, how to heal from your own toxic traits, right? Because we all got them. Everybody got a toxic trait. How to know what it is and not get triggered into acting on it. Because that's what honestly growing up is about as a woman. It's all about, like, knowing what you're going to be triggered by and knowing how to avoid it. That's it. That's all it is. All right. It's been a while, and I need to get myself to cooking, and I got a resumes that I need to work on. So I gotta go. But I love you guys so much. Thank you so much for joining the live. I greatly appreciate it. If you, yes, I am self-aware, and I'm very self-aware, and I try to avoid my triggers, because that's what self-aware people do. You avoid your trigger, like, not me. But yes, so consider joining the members if you want more story times of, like, things that I've gone through in my own life and how I overcome them. And also consider joining the membership. Check out my website, www.gltcareer.com, where I do resumes. I also do life coaching. So if you want a session, you can book with me on that website. Thank you guys so much, and I look forward to talking to you guys next time. As mentioned, this will be going on members only as soon as I end this. So I hope you enjoyed it. And if you want to listen to the replay, join my membership. Talk to you guys soon. Bye.